My name is Daniel Cross, and on October 28, 2009, my life changed forever. I was just an average guy, worked as an HVAC technician in a small town outside of Fort Worth, Texas. That afternoon, I was clearing out leaves from the top of our garage before a storm came through, something I'd done dozens of times before. My wife, Caroline, was inside baking cookies with our daughter, Emma. While the sun hung low in the sky, I remember it all so clearly. The smell of wet leaves, the distant sound of a neighbor mowing their lawn, the crisp breeze brushing against my face. It felt like any other day, which makes what happened next all the more unreal. I was leaning just a little too far to reach a stubborn clog in the gutter. My foot slipped off the ladder, and before I could even think to grab onto something, I was falling. Time seemed to slow, stretching every second out like it was suspended in syrup. I remember the flash of panic, the gut-wrenching moment when I realized I was completely helpless. Then came the impact, violent and silent all at once. My head slammed into the concrete, my body twisted underneath me, and everything went black. I later learned my heart stopped for just over 3 minutes. But while my family thought I was dying, I was somewhere else. What I experienced in those 3 minutes felt like a lifetime. I rose out of my body, not confused or scared, but calm. I looked down and saw Caroline running toward me, screaming my name, her hands trembling as she tried to wake me. Emma was frozen on the porch, her phone in her hand, her face pale with shock. I should have felt fear, but I didn't. There was only this profound peace, so deep, it felt like every burden I'd ever carried had been lifted. And then I was moving. I was pulled into what I can only describe as a tunnel, but not a dark one like you'd expect. It was bright, brighter than the sun, but it didn't hurt my eyes. And in that light, there was music, but not the kind you hear with your ears. It was more like the sound of everything good: love, hope, joy, all singing together in perfect harmony. And that's when I saw him, Jesus, not the soft, gentle image you see in paintings, but something far more real. There was a power in his presence that I can't fully explain, something both fearsome and comforting at the same time. His eyes looked straight into the deepest parts of me, but there was no judgment, only love, pure, overwhelming love. He didn't speak with words, but I understood him perfectly. It was like he placed knowledge directly into my soul. And then he showed me, not dreams, not ideas, but real moments, real scenes of what was coming to earth. I lived it, felt it, as if I were there, and what I saw broke my heart. The first thing he showed me was a wave of heat, not fire exactly, but this unbearable dryness, this relentless sun that never seemed to set. I was standing in what looked like the remains of a city, cracked earth beneath my feet, buildings hollowed out, and not a single tree or blade of grass in sight. I didn't know where I was at first, until I saw a faded highway sign half buried in dust. It said, "Welcome to Tucson." The air felt thick, heavy, and there was this eerie silence, broken only by the occasional groan of wind. Jesus didn't say a word, but I understood everything. This was the beginning of what he called the unraveling. He took me to other places, and it was always the same story. Cities once full of life were now shadows of themselves. In one place, I saw people walking through the flooded remains of what used to be downtown Charleston, their homes now half submerged in murky water. Children paddled on makeshift rafts, their eyes dull and tired, their skin blotched with strange sores. In another moment, I stood inside a high-rise tower turned shelter in Atlanta, where entire families crowded into the upper floors to escape the heat that scorched the ground below. The lights flickered, food was rationed, and tension hung thick in the air like smoke. I remember a mother holding her baby, whispering prayers through chapped lips. She didn't know I was there. None of them did, but I could feel their pain like it was my own. Then came the wars, not the kind you see in movies with tanks and fighter jets, but wars over water, over food, over the right to survive. I watched once proud communities turn on each other. Neighbors barricading streets, cities breaking into zones controlled by whoever had the most resources. There weren't sides, not like red versus blue or country versus country. It was chaos, pure and terrifying. I saw the Mississippi River run so low that towns that once relied on it had to abandon their homes. The skies grew darker in some places, as smoke from wildfires blotted out the sun for weeks at a time. Crops failed, livestock died, and people, good people, did things they never thought they'd be capable of, just to eat, just to drink, just to survive one more day. But even in all that horror, there were moments of hope. Jesus showed me that too. In the ruins, people still helped each other. I saw strangers sharing what little clean water they had. Communities coming together to grow food in the shells of abandoned shopping centers. I saw a group of kids learning how to purify water using old soda bottles and sunlight, being taught by a woman who used to be a school teacher. In Detroit, I watched what used to be a crumbling factory turn into a garden, vertical farms on every floor, powered by solar panels stitched together from scrap. They weren't just surviving, they were rebuilding. In one of the final visions, Jesus brought me to a place that looked almost like paradise, but not in the way we usually imagine it. It wasn't flawless or perfect. It was raw, real, and alive. I was standing in a vast green valley that stretched far beyond what I could see, and children were playing there. They wore these thin suits that covered their arms and legs, probably to protect them from the air, but they were laughing. Laughing like children do when they're safe, when they feel free. The trees looked young but strong, and new forests were growing where cities once stood. People had learned to live with the earth again, not above it. There were no massive towers or sprawling freeways, just small villages where everyone contributed, where no one went hungry or felt alone. Jesus looked at me then, and for a moment, I felt everything all at once. The sorrow of what had been lost, the fear that still lingered in people's hearts, but also this incredible sense of hope. Not just wishful thinking, but something real. He made it clear that none of what I saw was guaranteed. The future isn't fixed like some movie script. It's a choice. 1,000 choices made every day by people just like me, just like you. Every time we choose love over hate, every time we help instead of ignore, every time we protect something instead of destroy it, we shift the course of that future. I could feel it in my bones. Every small act matters more than we realize. And then, just as quickly as it all began, I was back. My body hurt in ways I can't even describe. I was surrounded by flashing lights, voices shouting orders, my wife sobbing beside me. One of the paramedics was yelling, "We got him!" I had no words to explain what had just happened, no way to make sense of what I'd seen. But the peace I felt in that other place, the presence of Jesus, it didn't fade when I woke up. It stayed with me. It still stays with me. And even now, all these years later, not a day goes by that I don't think about it. I know some people might not believe me. I've had family members roll their eyes, coworkers avoid the topic. But I'm not sharing this to convince anyone. I'm sharing it because I have to, because someone out there might be on the verge of giving up, and they need to know there's more. More than this world, more than the pain, more than the fear. There's purpose. There's redemption, and there's a future worth fighting for, but it starts now with the choices we make today. If the story touched you in any way, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving the video a like, and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have your own experience, don't be afraid to tell your story. We're all in this together. God bless you, and thank you for listening.